is scheduled twice a week to ensure that we have a financial education that's not shared anywhere else on the planet. He has his PhD in finance and economics. He's a professor. He's a coach to CEOs and CFOs, a business success coach, a mindset assassin, a friend, a business partner. Love him like a brother. Please help me bring to the platform none other than Dr. Craig Bythewood. Dr. Bythewood, are you out there?
Yes, I am, Miss Tanya Anderson. What a great training. Your trainings are always so energetic and so full of the type of energy that makes people want to go out and trade through a brick wall. So since I started with using a cliche through a brick wall, I want everybody, first of all, let me back up. Welcome to a talk with the finance doctor, your RX for FOREX. For those of you that are new, this particular call was designed to be a conversation. So what I'd like to make sure you do is that if you have a question, if you have a comment, if you have a testimony, please unmute your mic. Now, back to Miss Anderson, our PIP master. So one of the things that makes this movement work, one of the things that makes our leadership so wonderfully congruent is that we have the ability to be able to utilize a very important concept when we deal with one another. And that concept is sarcasm. So did you hear Miss Anderson say the Mulberry Bush? Now, I bet you if I brought her back on this call and said, Miss Anderson, what's a mulberry bush? She would have no idea. It's so interesting to me that we so aggressively make comments without really thinking about where they come from. So hi, Miss Smith, me being the nerd historian that I am, let me break down the mulberry bush, since our pit master felt that with all of this beautiful, wonderful wealth and abundance concept, that she had to make sure we knew about the mulberry bush. So Miss Anderson, in honor of your cliche, the mulberry bush actually comes from a prison, a women's prison in Wakefield, England. And what happened was, in the early days of the prison, one of the visitors brought a sprig. A sprig is it's like a British acorn, but it's bigger than that. So the sprig was thrown into the courtyard. So eventually the sprig grew into a tree, and it was the only area in the prison where the ladies could get exercise. So what they had to do is whenever they would do any specific organized activities in the Wakefield Women's Prison, they would have to go around the mulberry bush. So that's the origin of the mulberry bush. Okay, come on, finance doctor. We're here to learn about mindset. We're here to learn about finance. We're here to learn about economics. Why are you talking about the history of the mulberry bush? Because the real point is that we sometimes have to really be critically aware of our words and the power that those words mean. Of course, mulberry bush doesn't mean anything. I'm just using that as an example. But here's one that does. I hear people saying this all the time. As a rule of thumb, well, let's make sure as a rule of thumb. Well, as a rule of thumb. Well, here's the rule of thumb. Now, I use a lady's voice at the end on purpose. Because again, being the nerd historian that I am, whenever I hear a female say rule of thumb, I cringe. I get those shoulders tight that I try to talk against. I literally cringe when I hear a female say rule of thumb. Here's why. Because rule of thumb is a phrase that came from a law that was on the books in the 1800s in Europe. And here's what the law said. The law said, if you were a husband of a wife and you decided that you wanted to beat your wife, you were not allowed to beat your wife with any type of item that was larger than the circumference of your thumb. So you could beat her with something smaller than the thumb, but not the thumb. So if you ever get a personal email from me, there are two Bythwoodisms. The first Bythwoodism says worry is interest paid on a debt you may never owe. But the second one says, if you know what you're doing, you will always have a job. And if you know why you are doing it, you will always be the boss. So to me, sometimes we have to just pause and ask ourselves the question, why am I saying this? What is the origin of it? So rule of thumb, to me, based on what I just shared with you, I'm sure that no female on this call, no female listening to this video will ever use that phrase again. Because think about how far we've come from that being a law on the books to the Me Too movement, where we're saying, look, everybody deserves honor and respect. So I applaud our society for evolving to that point over 200 years, but we need to be careful about what we say. Now, this is a talk with the finance doctor, and his point is words matter. His point is words have impact, but the only examples he's given us is the mulberry bush and the rule of thumb. I would like for him to economize it. I would like for him to financiarize it. I would like for him to BYOBerize it. Okay, I will. Because this morning, a comment was made on our 5 a.m. call, which actually it wasn't a 5 a.m., it was 9 a.m. call, which I think was totally appropriate. Totally appropriate. But I just want to break it down the way we broke down Mulberry Bush. I just want to break it down the way we broke down rule of thumb. So Ms. Dyer, the trade whisperer, she was doing her thing. She was doing her thizzle. She was hitting it. She was kicking it. Charts, boom, boom. Market structure within market structure. She was killing it like she always does. And there was somebody who I'm assuming is a beginner because I don't know that person. And that person typed in the chat, this is so overwhelming. It was a 9 a.m. call. This is so overwhelming. Now, let me say it again. It is appropriate for that person to say, this is so overwhelming. It's appropriate for that person to think, this is overwhelming. But the same way that we're sending a subconscious message when we say rule of thumb, we need to think about what it means when we think it, when we say it, and then finally, when we type it. I have a life coaching client that's been one of my most challenging clients. And I offered my services to him about 3 years ago, and he was very adamant that he doesn't need coaching. So a year later, based on some things that were happening in his life, things that I spoke about as being possibilities, he then said, okay, I'm going to hire him as a coach. His girlfriend was very instrumental in it because she obviously wants the best for him. So while we were having our conversation, the girlfriend texted me and said certain things about him. And I responded with, this life coaching client is in love and light. You always want to respond to a low vibration with a high vibration. Isn't that what Michelle Obama said? When they hit low, you hit high. I try to live that way. I live that way. So I said all that to say this. She was texting me to say, he doesn't believe in affirmations. In fact, this was the statement. He said, affirmations do not work for me. Affirmations do not work for me. That's an affirmation. Affirmations do not work for me is an affirmation. One of my favorite quotes is this. A war against a war is a war. That is why, say it again, okay. A war against a war is a war. And that's one of the reasons why I'm so adamant about judgment. I'm talking about judgment a lot on this call because observation is strength. Judgment is weakness. I observed it. High vibration. Awareness. Knowledge. Judgment. Look at that. He know he wrong. She knows she ain't right for that. So it's the same object, It's the same thing that we're viewing, but there's a different energy associated with observing it versus judging it. So I said all that to say this. We need to understand that the words that come out of our mouth have power. They mean something. Now, I don't in any way think that the person who typed that had any malice involved. In fact, I've said multiple times on this call, it was appropriate to think it. It was appropriate to say it. It was appropriate to type it. I'm simply bringing up the fact that if we really want to think about the impact of words, we'll think about what that means. Now watch this. When we start our calls and we say, where you from? Who you with? We say, what's on your mind? What's on your heart? And everybody begins to type those affirmations. That makes us feel good. There are three reasons why it makes us feel good. Number one, because we see the affirmations. Number two, because we hear Ms. Dyer saying it. Number three, because we feel it. Because kinesthetically, when you type something, you're using 3 of your 5 senses. And so it makes it become a stronger imprint on your subconscious. Kind of like if you take a sprig and plant it and it grows into a mulberry tree, you're planting into your subconscious the actual thing that you are dealing with. It makes us feel good. But think about what happens when you think, I'm overwhelmed, and then you type, I'm overwhelmed. Everybody sees it. Somebody who may not have been thinking about overwhelmed is now thinking about overwhelmed because it just got typed. So again, I even looked, I don't think the person that said that is even on this call. That's not the point. The point is not what they put in the chat. The point is, what are we putting in our own personal chats every day? What words are we typing in our chat? What phrases are we using that really speak to where we are consciously and subconsciously? So the fact that it was typed and the fact that I visually saw overwhelmed, it made me think about how important our word is. There's a book I read sometimes, and it says, in the beginning, there was the word. Now think about that. What is being said in that book that I'm referring to is that the start of everything begins with your words. What you say begins with your words. You know, there's a psychological construct that's called primacy, recency, impact. Are we gonna go deep? There's a psychological construct that is called primacy, recency, impact. And what it means is this. People remember the first thing you say and the last thing you say more than anything else. So it's so important what we begin our conversation with. It's so important how we end our conversation, because that's the message that we're sending. So think about how tight and right the BYOB movement is, because we start off the week or the call with boom, affirmations. Then we end the call with prayer. Come on now. Come on, y'all think that we didn't sit in the lab and decide that we were gonna set this up in a way that reflects the way we want to live our life? This is not a Zoom call. This is not a training call. This is a movement. And we're moving in a way that puts us in a position to have wealth and abundance by being a vibrational match to the wealth and abundance that we deserve. I had a conversation with a really good friend today. We were talking about trading. This person is a member of our movement. And as I was having this conversation with this person, he said something very interesting to me. I know the person's not on the call, so I can be gossipy. He said, you know what? I really want the people in my family to know about the BYOB movement. But I know they're not ready. I know that their mindset is not there. For example, I went to my best friend, told him about what we're doing, told him about you, and I even offered to give him $500 to start his trading account. And he wasn't interested. But yet, he's working 3 jobs. Then he brought up his grown daughter. And I said, well, hey, people in that age group are killing this game. Let's get on the phone for a 3-way. He said no, because she's so into the daily grind that she doesn't have an openness to see anything other than what she has to do in order to pay the next bill. Now, one of the reasons why I'm telling this story, one of the reasons, is because I know each one of us represents a rectangle that is a representative of other individuals that are not involved, of other individuals that are not on this call. So when the Zoom is over, when the last prayer goes off, when we go one more time around the Mulberry Bush, we have got to go back to a group of people who don't have the mindset, a group of people that are similar to what I'm describing right now. I know that that's true. So he said, this is my idea. I'm going to trade, continue to trade, and I'm going to be successful. And I'm going to start with a large amount. I'm going to use Miss Anderson's 6 months to 6 figures. And I'm going to open up a series of laundromats. And when I open up these laundromats, I'm going to, excuse me, I'm going to give a laundromat to each one of my family members. Because right now, my family members do not have the mindset to be able to think, watch this, that A, they can do what we're doing, but they don't believe they deserve something like this. Oh, I was so proud of him because that's such an accurate statement. There are generations, there are levels to this. There are levels of undeservedness that we've had as a community, that we've had as a culture, that we've had as a nation. And so as a result of that, some of us have deep-rooted belief structures that affect our ability to deserve this opportunity. I'm going to come back to the laundromat in a second. I've said this before, and I'll say it again. Most welfare recipients are 4th generation. 4th generation. Think about that. 4th generation. There's nothing about that other than the fact that that's the energy that they're walking in. The beliefs are set up. That's how they look at it. So back to the laundromats, he's going to take the laundromats and he's going to give them to each family member. He's already designated the cities where his family lives. He has this particular family member in this city and this particular family member in this city. And when he gives the laundromats to them, he knows that that'll give them confidence because now they own the business. That'll give them an economic swag where they feel now that I've reached a particular level because I have this. And by the way, one of these family members is making $25,000 a year and is not open to receive what we're doing. Is not open to receive this vehicle. And again, we're observing it. We're not, I don't understand. No, we're not judging it, because when we judge it, it creates a spiritual force field that now puts us over here and them over there. And it keeps us from our ability to be able to connect to them. So I love what he said to me. This conversation happened today. I love what he said to me because if I give them a laundromat, 2 things happen. The first thing that happens is they feel good about themselves because they have a laundromat. They have a business. But the second thing, this is the part I thought was just brilliant. He said, if they're running a laundromat, guess what's going to happen during the day? They're going to have free time. And now that they have free time, now I can say, here, this is the Be Your Own Bank movement. This is what we're doing. Because as long as they're on their grind, they won't be able to receive it. And I thought that was brilliant. I thought that was absolutely brilliant. So one of the things that I really want us to think about is this. Like I said, each one of us, each of these rectangles, we are a representative. We are literally called to leave Zoom and then make it happen for those others in the room. Did he rhyme? Yes, he did. We need to make sure that we put ourselves in a position where we observe those in our area who just don't get it. They just don't see it. It doesn't match with their belief structure. And as a result of that, we have to understand that. Now, this is a story I've told multiple times, but it is so relevant right now that I'm going to tell it again. And those of you that have heard it before will understand that people learn by repetition. And those of you that are new will see how this fits into this story. There was a study that was done at Stanford University, and it's called the Cherry Blossom Study. And what happened was they took mice, lab mice, and they subjected these mice to electrical shocks. So what they did was they fed the mice cherry blossoms. And when the mice ate the cherry blossoms, they would get shocked. So the mice in the laboratory setting began to associate the cherry blossom with pain, the cherry blossom with a shock, the cherry blossom with discomfort. So after they spent most of the adult life of these laboratory rats, then they did this. They let the mice have children. They did not do anything to the children, to the mice children. Then they took the grand mice. And they took the grand mice. Now, let me be clear here. They did not subject the children of the electrical shockees to anything. They simply waited for the grand mice to be born. They took the grand mice and they introduced the smell of cherry blossoms. The smell. Wait. The first mice, they ate the cherry blossoms. And the eating of the cherry blossoms was associated with an electrical shock. But the grand mice, all they did was simply introduce the smell to the grand mice. And when they introduced the smell to the grand mice, all of a sudden, the grand mice began to exhibit all the qualities associated with being shocked. Their DNA was reflective of a memory 2 generations beyond. The heart started beating fast. All of the markers that the grandparents had, the grand mice had. So if you think about what I'm saying to you, it's this. Some of us are walking in some serious belief structures that are beyond what we can see, that are beyond what we know. And I know this. One of the things that my associate said to me, I'm not going to call him my associate, he's my friend. I've known him for 20 years. One of the things that my friend said to me was, I am the only person in my family that's ever reached this level of wealth. And he wears it as a badge of honor. And I love the fact that he's doing just what that painting right there says. He's doing that right now. He's literally coming up with a game plan. He's literally coming up with a long-term strategy to reach down and grab those that don't even realize that they're cherry blossoming themselves. And think about it. There's no way those grand mice could have known what happened to the granddads and grandmoms. Did he really say dads and moms? The older mice, the 2 generations ago mice, there I go around the Mulberry Bush again, Miss Anderson. So there's no way they could have known that that was what was going on. But yet, did you hear me? They still experienced it. Okay, say it again. There's no way that the grand mice could have known what 2 generations ago their grandparents went through. But yet, they still experienced it. So we have to understand, y'all, that there are some belief structures in the rectangles that are here. Actually, if we're gonna be real, if we're gonna be real, if we're gonna, you know how the kids will go FR, if we're gonna be for real, then we need to recognize that some of us rectangles have some beliefs that show themselves. So when we type, this is so overwhelming, we are literally reflecting a belief of why we may not deserve this, why we may not think we're ready for it, or we may challenge whether or not we can do it. But this story today moved me so much because he's already made the plan. Some of you now can recognize there's some plans that haven't been made yet. There's some strategies that you haven't come up with yet. And you have the ability to be able to do that, to put yourself in. That's not an ouch, Miss McLean. That's a, hey, let's walk in the awareness of where we are so we can get to where we need to go. There's nothing worse than having an injury. I swear to God, I just said this to my youngest daughter 2 days ago. I was talking to them about the dangers of medicine. And I admitted that if I have a flag football game and my ankle is swollen, I will take ibuprofen so I can play the game. But the danger of that is I don't feel it. I don't know whether I'm doing any damage to the ankle or not. I just want to play. Well, sometimes we got to be real about this. This is not an ouch. This is a hey. Let's have some awareness so we can know exactly what the injuries are so we can really play. So we can play to the best of our ability. So what if I got to wait a week? Because I wasn't like that. I'm still not like that. I want to play tonight. So I'm going to take the ibuprofen and wrap it up. But in reality, the smart thing to do is to realize it's okay. I can miss this one trade. I can miss this 1 week while I'm developing my skill set. I'm not overwhelmed. I'm just looking at something that I haven't seen before. And there's an African proverb that says, how does an ant eat an elephant? One bite at a time. Say it again, okay. How does an ant eat an elephant? One bite at a time. So the point here is simple. As we, in reality, I'm joking, but I'm really for real. We go around mulberry bushes all the time. And remember, the mulberry bush was in the way. It was a barrier. It was an obstacle. They had to go around it. So let's be real about some of the things that are going on in their lives and some of the things that are going on in our lives. So we can recognize that it was a seed that was planted long ago. And now the mulberry bush is here. We just got to go around it. This has been a talk with the finance doctor. Questions, comments, testimonies. Questions, comments, testimonies. 17, 17, 17. Why don't you unmute and say that? Because that's powerful.
Thank you, Doctor, for another powerful lesson as usual.
Oh,
thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Brownlee. I appreciate that. I didn't know that was you. I did not. Okay, anybody else have anything else they'd like to say?
No,
Questions,
17 was unmuted. So that wasn't Ms. Brownlee.
Okay. These things don't work. They for sure. 17. What were you gonna say?
Yes. I guess I would be me. Can you guys hear me?
We don't see you, but we hear you.
Yes. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Well, Dr. Finance, I wanted to thank you for your presentation tonight. Your words, as always, touches me so deeply. And I think apart from making money, it's monumental to understand the psychology of the people in which we need to reach for this movement. And I think you have done that tonight. You have us to understand that they are in a place that we must understand in order to reach them. So understanding the people to bring them in is priority over to making money. I mean, making money is great, but if we make it and can't reach anybody else, what have we done?
I
So
say
thank you,
let's do
Dr.
both.
Finance.
Thank you for that, but let's do both. It's definitely not either or. Let's do both. Because
Yes,
then
sir.
we can help more people.
I agree.
Thank you so
sir.
much for that sentiment. I really appreciate you. Anybody else have anything they'd like to say before we close this Tuesday night call? Thank you, everybody. Wait, do I hear a mic? Like Ms. Dyer said, is that a hot mic? And Ms. Dyer, thank you for coming in and correcting that. Heavenly Father, thank you for this opportunity for us to talk about your word. Thank you for this opportunity to remind ourselves of the power of words. So at this moment, we ask that we leave this prayer and leave this Power Pack Tuesday with a new awareness and a new intention to make the words that we think and the words that we speak have positive power over ourselves and all those around us. We are thankful, we are appreciative, and we are grateful. Amen. Okay, everybody, thank you for your attention. This will officially end this call. Take care.